Hi, I'm Jason Purcell,
And I'm Matthew Stepanic.
and you're listening to Glass Bookshop Radio. Matthew and I run Glass Bookshop, an independent bookstore in Amiskwaciuskaigan, Treaty 6, Edmonton, Alberta. And this is our brand new pod. I'll be taking on more of a hosting role in the podcast, so you'll hear me every episode. And I'm going to try to get Matthew on as many episodes as possible, but you'll also hear from an array of brilliant people, writers, publishers, friends of ours, who we can't wait to introduce you to. But in the meantime, let's introduce ourselves. Matthew, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a freelance writer and poet. For, I guess, like the past 8 years, I was running a literary magazine called Glass Buffalo, which was for emerging writers at the University of Alberta. So we published a lot of fiction, nonfiction, and poetry from those writers, and did a lot of work in terms of just kind of establishing a community for writers outside of the university, connecting them with a lot of professional writers, publishers, people that worked in magazines within Edmonton and around Alberta. So I had a lot of fun over, those many years, just kind of connecting with the incredible literary community that we have here. And I have a novella out through Monto Books called Project Compass. And then also I have a poetry chapbook called Relying on That Body, which is about season 10 of RuPaul's Drag Race. And, I'm working on a few other projects, but I guess this, bookshop, running it with Jason, keeps us pretty busy. But, I hope to kind of put together a poetry collection one day, and also kind of parse through my life to create some sort of weird, queer anxiety memoir. So, yeah, I like books. I have a corgi named Bob, who I hope everybody goes to look at my Instagram to check out pictures of. He's important to me. And those are some of the highlights of my life so far.
I feel like I've really learned a lot about you tonight.
Is that?
This is all brand new information to me. And me, Jason. So I guess when I'm not running the bookshop of my dreams with you, Matthew, I too am a writer. So I have a chapbook called A Place More Hospitable, and with any luck, someone someday will let me publish something else. But really, as you said, the bookshop is really, it's more than a full-time gig, and it doesn't leave a whole lot of room for other things, but we try to fit it in where we can. And maybe I'll introduce the shop as well, just to give folks an idea of what it is we spend all of our waking hours doing. Glass Bookshop, we're an indie bookstore in Edmonton, and we first and foremost work to center the types of books that I think can be sidelined in other bookstores, especially big box bookstores. So we try to center queer and racialized writers, indie publishers, whoever's doing really interesting and radical and beautiful and weird stuff. And as writers ourselves, and Matthew, you mentioned you're also a publisher. We're both really invested in our local literary scene here in the city and provincially. So you can expect to hear some local writers on the podcast in the future too. So Matthew, I want to ask you, what do you remember about the beginnings of the shop? How did all of this come about?
Well, depending on who you ask, we met over a drink. And that drink was either wine, if I'm telling the story. Actually, no. Maybe neither. I think you say tea.
Yeah, well, I ordered tea.
You ordered tea, and I think we were both drinking wine at that point, just because that's my preferred mode of being, is with a glass of wine. And Jason was the one who brought it up to me that he wanted to open up a bookshop. And it was kind of a really interesting time in both of our lives, because I had just gone freelance that year, and so this was probably going to be like March. And Jason was just finishing up his master's, and as we usually do, we kind of talk about writing and where we felt that could take us in our lives. And Jason had this dream that we both shared to open a bookshop, and you were the catalyst for it. I think, like, definitely the one who pushed me a little bit more, just because I'm a very hesitant person. And I feel like if I talked like I thought, I would speak more slowly some days. But yeah, so Jason brings this idea to me. I tell him to let it ruminate with me for a little bit. And, once you start crunching the numbers and we saw this incredible potential in Edmonton for there to be another bookshop, because at the time, the only independent bookshop in Edmonton that sold new books was Audrey's. And they were kind of a catch-all. Like, they still support local and carry a lot of interesting books. But the focus that we wanted to do with independent presses, queer and racialized voices, we just didn't see that in Edmonton. So I think as we met more and talked more and more about it, it really started to grow on me. And there was just a lot of work in terms of building the business plan. It felt like a new, almost like coming out to me to tell my parents that I was going to open up a bookshop.
Oh my God! Yeah, you were. I think it took you longer to tell them you were opening a bookshop than it took you to tell them you were dating somebody.
Yeah, that's
Like,
probably
how do you think
true.
that makes me feel, Matthew?
I know, and it's so weird because if you know my parents, it's just like it was difficult to tell them that I was going to get an English degree instead of going into engineering. So there's always been these big life choices that, like, my parents wanted me to be as financially stable and careful as I possibly can be. But
Look at you now.
I know, right? An entrepreneur. I like to take risks, but I also like to take very calculated risks. So I think Jason's idea was a very smart one. And as we began to flesh it out, I became more and more confident that, this would work for us.
Aw, well, thanks. I'm really glad that you feel that way now, because I do remember having to be really persistent, like kind of just come right to the edge of bullying you, really, to make this happen.
Another day at work, but
Yeah, I made sure to keep that going in our work culture, just the kind of abuse.
no, but I'm very, like, today, this day that we're recording the podcast, I am very grateful that, you bullied me a little bit into doing this, because I think we have a lot of fun. We've done a lot of cool things, and I'm excited that we get to talk about it more with other people via a podcast.
Oh my God. I mean, it's really a gift to everyone. No, I remember that day. We were drinking tea, not wine. It was not to say you can't have an afternoon glass of wine. You certainly can, but we weren't. We were having tea. And I just kind of sort of told you that this is something that we're doing together.
It was just, we're doing this.
By the way, did you hear about our new bookshop? It's called Glass Bookshop. I had the name. I had everything. I had like a business plan ready for you, actually.
Yeah,
you just had no numbers in it. Yeah, well, I don't know how to do math. I haven't.
Yeah.
Not that interested in it. Well, because as you say, I mean, you'd just recently gone freelance. You'd left your gig at a magazine publisher, and I was still working at the Canadian Literature Centre at the time at the University of Alberta, which really was a fantastic job. Like, it was basically my job just to connect with writers from across the country and fly them to Edmonton to give readings and lectures, and it was a lot of fun. And I worked with really great people, and it was amazing. But I had kind of I knew I couldn't go any farther than I'd gone. Like, there was no room for me to advance in that gig. And I think I was still working on my thesis, or had I finished?
You were still working on it, because it was definitely, because a couple months later, I remember I took a trip, and that was when I read your thesis and gave you feedback on it.
Oh, and you were like, I can't believe this is amazing. Wow. Yeah, right. I remember that. So I was finishing grad school, and I also knew I didn't want to pursue a PhD. I kind of didn't feel that academia was for me. So I'm really grateful to you that you submitted to my bullying, and look at us now, sitting in our closets recording a podcast. Matthew, so in this past, I guess it's almost been almost 3 years. What are some of the things you really, really love about running a bookshop?
Well, one of the things I particularly miss right now is interacting with customers face to face. That was probably one of the things that surprised me so much, just because I I don't have like unpleasant memories of my retail experience days. I did work at Blockbuster, which meant that I got tons of free rentals and watched movies all the time. But I didn't interact with customers too much, or didn't really have to recommend things. It was mostly just that we didn't have the movie they wanted, they weren't happy. But I feel like at the bookshop, it was the time to get excited about all of the books we had in, and to talk to our customers about it. Like one of the coolest things that would often happen is someone would come in and be like, "I've never seen these titles before. I didn't, know about this book." Or, people would come in asking for a book by a particular queer author or on a queer topic, and it was just really fun to have these chats with people and learn a little bit more about their reading lifestyles and reading habits. And I'm always very afraid of forgetting people's names when I see their faces, because I remember every face that I know that person. And so I was a little bit scared too that we would have our regular customers and I wouldn't remember them. But that my memory has not failed enough. I still remembered them the same way. And, we grew a lot of like friendships that way. Like, we've met a lot of really cool people in Edmonton, who still connect with us and keep in touch. So that's definitely one of my favorite parts, is just like the kind of community that you build with the readers who visit your shop. And connected to that, all the events that we've been able to do. Because I think before we had our pop-up location at Edmonton City Centre Mall, the year before that, we were, bringing in books for Canadian Literature Centre events and Writers Guild events, and working with, visiting poets like Ben Ladouceur. When he came, we sold books at his event. So I really liked that experience of, I think we weren't planning the event so much as just selling books. I didn't have to make sure everything went completely smoothly. So it kind of felt nice that there was moments where I could just sit behind the table and, take in the event like everyone else did. Whereas I feel like when I'm planning and doing a Glass Buffalo event, like I'm very hands-on. I'm running around making sure everyone's happy.
You only get to rest at the intermission.
Yeah, that's why I want that intermission, Jason. That's why every event needs an intermission for me to rest. But yeah, so I loved all the authors that we got to meet, people that came. Jay Simpson, for instance, was the first poet that read at the mall, and they were just incredible. So it was cool that they were in town, and we conveniently had a bookshop that we could host them at. So magical connections happened in that way.
What you say here reminds me of like one of the very first days that we were open, only a year ago now. Our first birthday is October 1st. So I remember stocking the shelves and really not being certain how we were going to do, because like, leaving aside all of the other things that people say about independent bookstores, maybe not succeeding or not staying open very long, that really wasn't front of mind. But we were, as you said, in a mall. We were a little independent bookshop that had a pretty niche selection in the middle of a mall downtown, and I didn't know if we would see people really engaging with the books that we had on the shelves. But I remember, yeah, one of the first people to come in brought a book up to the counter, and it was a book of essays by Dion Brand. And like, Dion Brand is a very famous writer, very well known. And I think maybe more for the fiction than for the poetry, and certainly more than the essays. I think that's my perception. And anyway, so they brought one of the essay collections up, and I was like, "Oh, you must be a fan. This is so cool. Like, love Dion Brand." And they were like, "No, I've never read anything by Dion Brand before, but this book just seemed really interesting." And that was kind of the moment where I was like, "All right, we are putting books in front of people that maybe they wouldn't have encountered elsewhere." And I started working at a bookstore, I don't know how old I was now, 18 or 19, and it was a Chapters, which is owned by Indigo. So like a big box store. They have all of these sort of ideas of who their customer is and what kind of book their customer wants. And I really learned that I had internalized all of that in that moment where I said, like, I don't know if people are going to go for this. I really learned that Indigo had maybe trained me not to think very highly of of readers. But opening the shop and seeing the kind of books that people want to read and seeing people respond to the type of curation that we've been doing alongside so many of our friends who have like recommended books for us to stock. It's really now I think so highly of all these people who come in because they are just smart, engaged, curious people, and it was so cool to see that happen in the middle of a mall that is like, you know, frequented by people who work in towers nearby. Like you get all types of people through there, and that was just, it was so cool.
And I think that's one of the interesting things that I didn't expect about running a bookshop is, you know, I thought I'd have to have a complete list of all the titles we needed to stock, would need to know everything that was coming out or, you know, what was hot right now. And I feel like our customers are really reliable resources for other books that we should carry in. Like, you know, some people will say, oh, I see you have this book. Why don't you also have this author? And a lot of times it's just either something we forgot to bring in or something we weren't aware about. So I appreciate also the way that our customers educate us and let us know what cool things that we should be bringing in, because it helps grow my own taste. Like I think my reading list has naturally grown when you work at a bookshop and see everything cool that comes in. But I think customers are responsible for, you know, forcing me to buy even more books than I thought I would buy.
100%. Well, it's a common refrain in our bookshop whenever we're like packing up special orders. I'm always like, we should have this. Like, we should have this. And it's, yeah, it's pretty, it's pretty incredible to have such a group of people who like we feel we can totally trust to help us shape the bookshop. And I think that was something that we wanted all along was to build a bookshop that actually reflected the communities that customers are part of. And so I'm really, really thrilled to be seeing that happen. Even still, even though we don't have a shop open for browsing, and you know, everything is online, like we're still using people's special orders to kind of inform the type of stock we carry. So we're like filling up our little tiny bay with all of these cool books. It's really great. That's a good point, Matthew. It's a good point.
Yeah. I just drew it off of the thing you were saying earlier. So it was
So
teamwork.
really, it was. Oh, I thought it was you.
Oh,
It was me.
I wanted to give us
It
both
was me
credit.
all along.
Wow.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Um, so things with the shop really did take a turn in March, though, like as did everything in the world. So for those of you who maybe don't know our story, we did shut our doors to browsing a few weeks before any sort of official shutdown notices came down in March. And then we moved out of that store in the mall that we were talking about. We moved out of Edmonton City Center, and we really rapidly moved to a whole different model for the shop. And we kind of implemented what I call the Glass Bookshop delivery service, because I think it's a cute name. It reminds me of Kiki's delivery service a little bit,
Yeah.
just so y'all know. And so we started delivering for free in Edmonton, St. Albert, and Sherwood Park, which we're still doing. And we started shipping across North America. And I was there for it, and as were you. But I'm wondering, like, what was it like for you in retrospect, making all of these rapid changes one after another, especially being such a new bookshop that had only been open for like 5 months at that point?
It was strange. And I feel like everyone talks about COVID time since you know, like the lockdown happened, and how it stretched and felt differently. Because I feel like, you know, March, I think 17th would have been the day we closed, all the way until like the end of April, felt like we fit like 6 months of work and 6 months of ideas in that tiny little space, because it just felt we were changing almost, you know, day to day, week to week, what our processes were, what things were kind of going on, because you know, it was the Friday after the limit came from the Alberta government to kind of, you know, keep events below 250, that Jason and I realized, okay, we need a new way to serve our customers. And so like that Friday morning, I was on the phone with our POS system book manager, which is
Shout out to
incredible.
Book
Like,
Manager.
yeah, like I don't know how we would have done this without Book Manager. I want to cry.
We
They're
wouldn't.
just
We
beautiful
just would not have.
people. Yeah, running a beautiful program for independent bookstores across North America. And I think I was one of the first people to get to them and say, hey, we want a website so that people can order things online and that so we can do contactless delivery to different people in Edmonton. And so, I spent like an hour doing that with them. And then, over the weekend, you saw tons of other independent bookstores moving the same direction. And we just didn't know what to expect every decision that we made. I expected to maybe do 10 to 20 deliveries every day by myself. That kept increasing and it was a lot for me to take on. And so, then it was like after a week or two, we need to hire delivery drivers and we need to figure out how we're going to get them books to, make sure that customers get books on time. And, also while this was happening, distributor rules were changing. A lot of distributors were, not any like kind of their backlist titles that were kept further off in the warehouse or, weren't safe to kind of get to. They weren't shipping those. So we were only able to, ship new titles or ship what we had in stock. And our website at the time was set up to kind of do special orders from anything. And we realized that, oh, wait, we can't just get everything into the bookshop. You still kind of, I don't want to get into the math of like ordering because that might,
Please don't.
People are starting to tune out of the podcast. But,
I'm tuning out of the podcast.
For efficiency and, cost, you just, you need to order a certain amount of books at a time. And so, we had to like limit what distributors we could order from and, especially what people wanted. So that was tough to kind of like manage and then also help to manage people's expectations on how long a book would actually take to come in. Because most people, might have shopped from Chapters or Amazon online before, and they'll often get those books in, 2 days to a week. But we needed to have the books delivered to us first. And then, next day we could deliver it to them. So there's a lot of extra time. And like, I think, we wanted to make sure that we could, get books to customers in a timely manner. So we started to choose which distributors we could actually order from and, hid some of them on the site just to make sure that people got things on time. So it really felt like it wasn't until May that I began to feel comfortable with, what the process was, that how we were actually, ordering books and getting them to customers. And, the last few months have, I've started to feel normal. Like this feels like, Glass Bookshop delivery service. That's just as exciting as Glass Bookshop, the store. It's just strange, but like there's weird points where there's a huge demand in titles that changes how we do things, or university professors are incredibly supportive and have sent their students to us for class orders, so that's kind of helped kept us busy, and those are my feelings about it.
Yeah, we've been doing the delivery service for as long as we had the store, which is kind of wild to think about.
Yes, like and longer now.
Longer now.
Yeah, we were 5.5 months in city center, and then it's been like 6.5 months now with deliveries.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm trying to add it up to a year. 5.5 plus 6.5 is 12.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So
Good.
that's the first
Good
year
math.
of Glass Bookshop.
Wow. And I have to admit that I felt a lot of guilt in the earlier months about being the gay that couldn't drive and leaving you to do all the deliveries. But I've overcome that, so don't worry.
Did that take you just a week to overcome?
Yeah, a whole week.
Yeah, that was a tough week for you.
Well, 6 days. I took Sunday out of rest.
Oh yeah, that's an important thing to remember.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say something about how, you contributed too, Jason, but it's
Oh,
okay, we'll just move on. No, it's fine. Don't
okay,
worry.
we'll do that.
No, don't worry about it. Let's not waste people's time.
Jason, I know you felt really bad about not being able to drive, but you contribute a lot of horoscope content to the bookshop. So anytime I need to know about astrology, I turn to you. But also, I should say, in all seriousness, you've done an incredible job connecting with our customers and running our social media in the most beautiful way possible.
Gosh,
It's
you don't,
like
you stop.
you don't want me to stop, Jason. I'm going to keep going. I mean, no one is as intelligent a lighting expert as Jason. He can make any book shine in a photo,
Aw.
and I think that's always been the fun part. Is I think 15 minutes, not even after Jason posts something on Instagram, we'll get an order come in for it for a random book that you wouldn't think anyone would want, but just because Jason posts a beautiful photo of it and talks about it in an elegant way, he can convince people to buy it. So I think Jason's been the big part of the marketing side of the business, where he's making sure that people are still aware that here's all the cool new stuff that we're getting, and I'm just more of the daily tasks guy, where I'll process your transactions, deliver you your books, put them in the bins for the delivery drivers, just the smaller tasks
Well,
that
don't
are peaceful.
diminish your work. I mean, your contributions are what keep the shop afloat. I mean, I could be posting Instagram pictures till the cows come home, but those cows aren't getting any books if you're not there to help. Um,
That's right. And that
so
would be sad for the cows.
yeah, I know. I want to talk about something that you kind of already alluded to, which is the incredible way that the community has rallied around us to make sure that we succeed. And like, this is not just in COVID time. This is consistent from the very beginning of Glass Bookshop. Like when we launched the idea, people were immediately so supportive. Um, and that's not also just located here in the city, but like provincially and even nationally. And I think that we're both really indebted to all of our friends and people who support the shop for allowing us to stay around, because there have been so many businesses across industries that have had to shut down. um, and I think it's really a testament to like Edmonton's really passionate and tenacious community of readers and publishers and writers. And I don't know that like the rest of Canada necessarily knows what a community we have here, or even people in Edmonton. Some people in Edmonton don't know that we have an incredibly robust literary community here that's producing some like magnificent work. So I guess shout out to all of you for for being incredible supporters and helping us to stay around.
Yeah, like it's interesting because I mean, back in the days when you used to take a plane and go to a conference somewhere, I traveled a lot for magazines with Glass Buffalo, and I would talk to people in Toronto or Vancouver about the art scene here, and they were just surprised. Like a lot of people think of Edmonton and Alberta as this dead zone, but there's so much incredible art here, and there's so many people who really want it and want to support it, which is definitely something that we've seen. And I even like remember when people would come into the shop for the first time, and it was always exciting when they picked a book from a local author, and you could pass on the information like, oh, they're going to be doing a reading at the Olive Reading Series next month. You should check it out. Or that first month that we were open, we had so many Lit Fest titles when we were working with them, and could send so many people like, oh, you can go meet the author at this event. And people were really excited to engage with that world outside of the book. And yeah, just so incredibly grateful to the support we saw come in week one of us switching over to the online and delivery service. You just never, when you heard of other businesses closing and suffering, like we just never knew what to expect month to month. But I just I just feel so grateful for that support.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we could do this in any other city.
No, no, and I don't think I would want to. Edmonton, it feels so much like a home, and there's such a great community of people that I know here, and
Mhm.
also I love all my friends.
Oh, you
That
do, huh?
Yeah, I do love my friends. I
Okay.
love my friends, and I wish I saw them more, but that's our new reality. Um, yeah, so I'm grateful that we can do this in the place that we want to do.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. It's a real privilege and a real gift, that's for sure. Um, I'd like to also circle back to something that we were talking about when it comes to the transition from bookstore to delivery service, and that is like kind of letting people know the ways in which independent bookstores operate differently from Indigo and Chapters or Amazon, who have access to these enormous warehouses where they can just stock or keep on stock a whole bunch of books and then ship them out at a moment's notice. Whereas for us, we are really at the mercy of distributors and publishers to get us books, and those lead times are longer than people have been trained to expect.
Well, yeah, like I mean, I remember the hot title at the end of March was The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel because it was just released, and we ordered enough copies for what we would expect to sort of sell in the store, and I think maybe it had been out for a week, and we sold one copy, and then immediately as soon as we offered the online delivery, all our copies sold out, and then we had a bunch like special ordered, and the distributor didn't have enough copies on hand when we place our new order. So then, it gets back ordered, and then the printer has to print more copies, then send them to the distributor and then send them to us. So, normally some books could come in a couple days to 10 days, whereas this one, took a couple weeks for us to get more stock. And so, it was, we had a bit of a challenge making sure to communicate with customers properly and let them know that it's going to take a little bit longer for them to get this great book that everybody wants to read than it would have done pre-COVID, especially because everything was already moving slower as distributors and publishers figure out their own distribution lines to bookstores. So yeah, it was a weird complication for everything, but things have sort of figured themselves out, and I think I've learned a lot more about distribution and, even like how many copies to bring in. Yeah, I feel like my ordering for the bookstore has changed, from like what will fly off the shelves in a physical space versus, like what flies out of our store when people just see it online and on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that another thing I wasn't sure about was how people would respond to the conditions of an independent bookstore and the limitations that we had. But I found that when we did explain sort of the life cycle of a book being published, printed, sent to a distributor, sent to us, people were really understanding and actually interested, because it's like it's part of the life cycle that I think people don't see quite as much, especially when Indigo or Amazon can get a book to you right away, and they don't need to wait. Like it's amazing to kind of take a peek behind the curtain with a customer who maybe hasn't considered before all of the other steps along the way.
Yeah, exactly. And like it was incredible to be met with patience on that end when we had the opportunity to educate them on how it worked. And I find a lot of people have also, changed their habits where, they'll pre-order a book 2 or 3 months in advance, which really helps me know what's going to be popular, so that I can bring in enough copies to meet like the early demand and, what I'm sort of extrapolating from that.
Mm-hmm.
And, so many people too, they're just like, oh yeah, like I'm just placing this order now, whenever you get it to me, that's great. Like I've got a big reading stack already. I think maybe it's also that readers are just very patient people because we just buy a lot of books and we're never really sure when we're going to read them. So when they show up, via free delivery one day, we're just happy to get them.
Yeah. Maybe on this note, do you have any thoughts on Amazon at all? I mean, I wonder if there's nothing you could say, because I think we are trying to do a little education on the perils and problems of shopping at Amazon specifically, particularly about ways that Amazon has undermined both the publishing and bookselling industries. You and I have both been really inspired by Danny Kane of Raven Bookstore, who's done tremendous advocacy and anti-Amazon work through the bookshop there and on social media. What are your thoughts, Matthew, on Amazon, its impact on books and publishing and bookselling? Have you any?
I hate Amazon, and that's all I'm going to say.
My God, we're like going to be immediately blacklisted.
I know the Apple Podcasts like searches through every podcast that says Amazon and just like blocks it if it's a new episode, if it's something negative. But no, I do not shop from Amazon. I shame a lot of people that do shop from Amazon. I know we all have different needs, and there's a lot of accessibility issues that surround a reason that maybe someone wants to shop from Amazon. And I always try to encourage people to find other online shops that'll work the same way for them. But I don't want to completely diminish someone who has to shop from Amazon. But I personally do not. And I attack my parents, and we argue about this all the time. But it's a terrible company. Like, I want to get into, I'll repeat what you said about, Danny Kane has that incredible chapbook out right now called How to Resist Amazon and Why. That has a lot more of the facts and figures that I would encourage people to sort of look at to see, a corporation that doesn't pay taxes in the States despite making so much money. Everyone was really upset when we found out that Trump only paid $750 in taxes last year. Well, guess what? Other corporations and stuff are paying nothing. That's one of the things that's wrong about them. They also have a really negative influence and a large control of the publishing industry, just because they sell so many books, and they sell so many books because they can make their books so cheap. We as a bookshop, there's a margin that you make on a book. So 60% of the retail cost goes back to the publisher, pays the writer, pays the printer that put it together, like all those different people involved in that chain. And then the bookshop keeps 40% of that. And that money goes towards, paying our employees, like our delivery drivers, paying ourselves, paying our rent, investing in future stock, investing in the community, paying writers to, host our podcast, come to events when they were able to do. Like, there's just that 40% goes in so many different hands and within the local community when we, sell a book. Whereas,
and we pay taxes too, right?
Oh, and we also pay taxes. Yes, we do.
Just so you know,
we definitely pay
did we
taxes.
ever?
Yeah,
we paid them,
today was the tax deadline,
and we coughed it up.
We paid taxes, so I want a road named after me, but no, I don't know how much a road costs.
Right. We're not quite there yet.
No, not yet, but we hope to pay that much in taxes one day. That would be a dream. See, now I want to pay more taxes. I don't know. Does Jeff Bezos saying this in his closet right now? I would like to pay more taxes. No, he is not. But yeah, as Amazon, they can, they don't need to consider that 40% because Amazon makes money on so many of the other things that they sell that if they make 10% on a book, that's good enough because they just need to pay for, the gas in a vehicle. Like, they can undercut that. And so then people immediately go there because they think, okay, cheaper book. This is, what I can kind of afford to spend. And, it's work that we're trying to do to just educate people about local economies and how, when you spend money in your independent bookstore, this is how you see it go back into your community. So that's kind of one of the major reasons. And then we see things like, I think it was for the Testaments that came out a year ago. I don't even remember, but Amazon released it early. And so people got it before the release day. And independent bookshops, we have to sign these NDAs where we will not put that book on a table until like midnight of the day it's out, or else we could get thousands of dollars in fines. But Amazon does something similar. And I don't even know if they got their hands slapped. Like, I think the only people that were mad were independent bookstores. I don't think the publisher didn't say anything. The author didn't say anything. Like, it was just, they have so much power to kind of get away with these sort of book crimes that, in the end sort of steal sales from independent bookshops, because now people are thinking, oh, someone got a book early before the release day from Amazon once. Should maybe I start, buying from Amazon? And I think it was intentional on their part, that's sort of like a scheme that they may have thought up to, grab more sales. So These are some of my initial thoughts on like how Amazon is unhealthy for the publishing industry and booksellers.
I mean, for people who don't know, again, how the whole industry works, it kind of is a way of sowing distrust about independent bookshops. You know, people say, well, my friend got their copy from Amazon. Why didn't you give me my copy, you independent bookstore? Like it sort of it undermines what independent bookstores are about and able to do. And something I don't know about Jeff Bezos, and I don't know if this is out there or not, but like Amazon started as an online book retailer, and so I don't. He very well may have been a capitalist at heart all along and only wanted to make profit, but was there ever a part of him that was like invested in books and literature and the publishing industry and then was corrupted along the way, or like, or what, like, do you know what I mean?
I'm very curious about that now too. And like, shout out to another title against Amazon that's coming out through Biblioasis soon. I'm curious, maybe that will go into Jeff Bezos' story more too. And in terms of, does he read books? Does he like books?
It's curious, we'll find out. But I think you touched on something here that's important to kind of unpack, which is the way in which Amazon prices books low, so that they can make a profit elsewhere, but the ways in which that actually devalues books, not just like in cost, but like, you know, value. Like people begin to balk at the actual cost of a book and believe that it's overpriced, simply not worth the cover cost, you know. And it's not just Amazon doing this, like other book retailers, like I don't know, Costco is one, or there are a number of others whose talking points are, you know, like why should a book cost $20 or $30? That's outrageous, and sort of as a way of selling whatever books they have. And I think what happens there is like, these people aren't factoring in the cost of what makes a book possible, like you said, like ensuring that a writer has the room in their life to actually write the book, or an agent, if the writer has one, who helps to get that book to a publisher, and then the editor at the publisher who works to refine the manuscript, and then that goes to a marketing team who tries to figure out what's the best way to communicate what's great about this book to potential readers. Then there's the designer who lays out the text and designs the cover that's going to catch your eye on the shelf or on Instagram these days. Printing costs, distribution costs, publicity, like all of these things cost money, and are essential to the life cycle of a book, which then leads me to B, if you yourself as a bookseller don't also see all these moving parts behind the scenes that factor into the book price, and if you yourself don't value all those elements of a book, then you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like my feeling is that we as booksellers need to be supporting this industry, not trying to match the prices of Amazon or play by their rules, or communicate in our messaging to customers that books shouldn't be priced what they're priced, because I think it might be better to educate people on the value of books and where those dollars go. Because without the publishing industry, we don't have books to share with people. And like I this is why I'm also like a proponent of libraries, because there are accessibility issues when it comes to the price of a book, but that's not the fault, to my mind, it's not the fault of that industry. Like I don't see the book publishing industry like gouging readers. So I don't know. I'm kind of rambling here, but
No, you brought up some good points. And I mean, Canada has this really great thing where we have, I think it's the Canadian Public Library Lending Allowance, or it's some sort of fund that the way that the amount of times a book is checked out at a library, the author receives a percentage of money from like the government. I actually, we're our taxes. My goodness, I wish I had known more things before I started talking. But, you know, authors, like, you know, if you think, oh, getting a book from a library, I'm not supporting the author in any way, you actually are, because they will in Canada receive money. You know, it's cents on the dollar, but, you know, it really adds up for people. And it's like, I think I always know what time it is in the year, because everyone starts sharing their checks that they got from it, and every writer is always really happy to get that check. So I think that's a great way to think. Like, if I still want to support an author, but I can't afford to buy the book, if you take it out from a library, they'll still see some support in that way.
Yeah, and it also like it still supports the publisher too, because libraries pay for the books that they then lend out. So you're still kind of participating in you're showing that you value this industry.
And like to one of the great points that Jason was making earlier when he was talking about the team that puts the book together, I just want to say, like, as a publisher of a magazine and a chapbook or chapbooks, it's impossible to do it without a team. Like everyone plays such an integral role in making that beautiful object that you pick up in a bookstore or you take out of your paper bag now in today's world. And like everybody, deserves to make money for what they do. Like I've worked with so many of these people, and the person who comes back at me and surprises me with an incredible cover image for someone's book, the authors that I have the pleasure of working with and editing their writing, or designer who, all he does is lay out text and like kind of put everything together. But it's just a skill that's so specific to one person. And it's so important to have someone who's good at doing that. I think everyone who participates in the industry plays such a valuable role and should see, that value shown back to them for it.
Yeah, and like I don't know, I'm thinking too about like used bookstores and how used books aren't priced low because of a flaw in the pricing system with books, but it's because they're used. It's because they've seen some things and they've been passed around. Like I don't know. I think when it comes to used books, I think like there's in Europe. I can't remember the countries now. Ooh, but there is. I know I need to like fact check myself before I get on here. But there is actually legislation in place that forbids like big box retailers from discounting the sale of new books. I think for like the first 6 months of publication, as a way of leveling the playing field, so that indies like us actually have a chance, right? Because if the way that Indigo puts things on like 30 or 40% off the first week if it's a bestseller, of course people are going to go to Indigo to buy that. But what that kind of legislation or protection does is allows independent bookshops to actually have a chance at selling these books that could be like live or die really for them.
Mm-hmm. And then making also sure that the publishers and distributors are able to be paid just as much, and that they don't have to, because sometimes publishers will discount how much we have to pay for the book because they're hoping to move stock. So like they don't have to take as big of a cut if they know that more stock will move sooner.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to pick up this conversation again on future episodes with some guests who might have some other insights.
Definitely.
I have some fun questions to close off with. Are you ready?
Yeah, I can do fun. I can do fun now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What are you reading right now?
That is an excellent question that I knew would come up. And I feel, I guess I'm
And you
just going to
still don't have an
preface it.
answer.
I have an answer. I'm going to preface it with it's been a busy week, and I know no one should be shamed for whatever they choose to read, but I want some sort of like cool indie local writer. There's a lot of books that I'm excited to read, but just because the mental space I feel that I have for reading right now, I've really been enjoying Ali Brosh's new book, Solutions and Problems, because most of it is pictures. It's quick, it's fun, it's delightful. I missed her. I
Isn't it
grew up with that.
solutions and other problems?
What did I say?
Solutions and problems.
Yeah, probably Solutions and Other Problems. That sounds better. Apologies to Ali Brosh. Um, this is where my mental space is at. I can't even remember the title of the book that I'm reading right now.
It's okay.
I've just been, it's something that like I can read at the end of the night. I know I'm just going to be able to turn off whatever other anxieties I have in the world and just sort of sit with this person that I felt like she grew up with the internet, like we all did, or like my age as a 30-year-old. Like it was just that perfect time on the internet where, it felt like few things went viral and like we weren't overwhelmed with content. And so many of my friends and I just loved her posts. And it's just interesting to experience her now in a book form, because like her first book was, a lot of it was stuff from her website, but this is all, new stories and new moments from her very weird childhood. So I've been enjoying that. That's what's been on my nightstand.
It's a good one. What are you reading, Jason? Well, let me tell you, Matthew. I haven't been reading much of anything at all, actually. So, you can shame me even more for that.
Wow.
But I haven't really had the mental capacity. But, okay, well, so yesterday, I paid my taxes yesterday. You paid yours today.
Yeah.
And it was the last thing I did before bed. Like, literally, we got a call from our accountant. I got it like maybe 9 o'clock. And he gave me the number, and then I just took a minute to sort of look around the room in a daze, like, is this reality? Then I paid it. And then I've been trying to work my way through War and Peace. So I immediately went to bed and started reading this huge novel about all these rich Russians. And I was like, what am I doing? And also, because I haven't really been like in a reading space, I'm 300 pages in, but I've read those 300 pages over the course of the last 6 months. So I don't know who anyone is. I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm opening it up and they're like, oh, he has a mustache now. I'm like, cool, who? So I don't know. I'm not really in a reading space right now. Well, then, do you want to tell me about some books that you're excited about?
Yes, I would. 1 second.
Oh my God. Okay, we're just going to move on.
No, I've got this. I just I don't remember anyone's name
Names.
now.
Yeah, who? Yeah.
Names. I'm just clicking
Well,
on the
I'm excited
website.
for Emily Riddle's chapbook. That's going to come
Yes.
out through Moon Jelly.
Moon Jelly, a great new independent chapbook press in Edmonton. Nisha Patel and Matthew Weigel are running that one.
We love that.
Yeah, we love them.
Yeah,
They're wonderful people.
that and them. They are. So I'm looking forward to that. That's really exciting to me.
Yeah, and one book I'm excited about now. This is where all the local authors come in. Always Brave, Sometimes Kind by Katie Bickle just came out through Touchwood Editions.
Nice.
Novel told in short stories. Just kind of that small town political vibe. I grew up in Medicine Hat. I think I'm trying to look up where she grew up so that I don't say things weird. But it's just narratives around rural Alberta and just a space and a setting that I don't think appears in too many novels. So I'm glad that we're seeing more people write about it.
Yeah.
And I also want to shout out Anna Marie Sewell has her book Humane coming out with Stonehouse Publishing, and she's an incredible, I guess I would call her a writer. I would usually just say she's an incredible poet, because I've read Fifth Drum, and she has another newer collection that came out, and that's just how I know her. And recently, she's now putting out her first novel through Edmonton Press, and I'm excited to read her in a new form, just because her poetry has so much music and energy to it. I'm curious if that will change at all in how she writes.
It'll just be
novels.
limp and lifeless and dull.
Yeah. I love Anna Marie too much. She would never let me down that way.
No,
so I
wouldn't.
think that's going to be a good one.
Nice. Those are good picks.
Thank you.
You got them. Okay. Are you ready for one last question?
Yes.
I hope this one's not a stumper. What is your favorite thing about working with me?
Oh. You know what? This might surprise you. But
Nothing.
I think nothing will surprise Jason. Jason would want me to say he has the best outfit every day. It's his style that makes me come to work, because I'm wondering what great new thing Jason's going to wear. But in more honesty, I feel we have a very good working relationship that I really value, that I don't think I've ever had in any kind of office space before, where even though Jason has fewer feelings than I do, he makes space for them. So I feel like we always
Do you really think I do that?
Well, I think so.
Are you just saying that for the podcast?
I'm saying that for real.
Well, that's nice.
I know, right? Edit that out. Now I'm indignant. I mean, for the most part, right? You always let us have a long conversation when I need to. We're gonna have a talk about this tomorrow about how
Oh,
you don't believe me.
I just wanted to know if
Um,
you really felt that way. That's nice.
yeah, but I think Jason and I just have that great working relationship where we, as you know, we've been doing this for 2 years. Um, the more we learn about each other and the ways that both of us prefer to work, we try to figure out the best systems and ways to bring that in. You know, Jason likes to be a big picture thinker and, you know, kind of plan for the future, plan a cool new glass bookshop merch or something. Whereas I like to sit at the computer and order books and fill out spreadsheets and do some of the, I don't know, like what some people might think the boring tasks. If it's something I can check off a list, it just makes me feel better. So yeah, like I'm more comfortable with the day to day and dealing with numbers and paying bills. And so I think we work really well together. And as we've, you know, tried to figure out more and more ways that we can work better together, Jason always makes room for those conversations. So I appreciate that.
That would be my answer too. That's so funny.
It wasn't my outfits.
Well, we're working on it. Yeah, that's why I'm sending you all those links. Yeah,
Cool.
that's so nice. Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I feel like working with you, it really allows me to show up in like a really authentic way, and I it really makes me happy to feel that you feel the same way. Like I don't know, I feel it feels very affirming. Like I kind of feel like we're on the right path with this bookshop thing because you know it's not to say it's been without obstacles or without stress,
Yeah.
but I really feel like there's no one on earth I could do this with but you.
Oh, definitely not. Like I was like just taking a moment to think about it, and I was like, nope,
No, no, and that's
no.
like no offense to literally everyone else on the planet. Uh, it's just it's just that some things just work.
Yeah, we were always meant to be business partners
I
from the
guess.
day we met.
Yeah.
We knew.
Well, we didn't know, but I guess.
Yeah, it was the stars aligning.
Yeah.
Fill this in with an astrological metaphor.
Sure. I will be sure to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Matthew, thank you for talking to me this evening. I know it's been a stressful one for you, so I appreciate you taking the
Yeah.
time just kind of sit in your dark closet and talk to me about the bookshop.
You know, I wouldn't be anywhere else. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Wow. I love that. Me too.
Beautiful. Thank you for having me on sort of my podcast.
Yeah, it's sort of yours. It's like mostly
Yeah.
mine, but sort of yours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get to say no sometimes if I don't want you to do something.
Yeah, exactly. But mostly I'll do it. That's our first episode. Glass Bookshop Radio and the shop itself both come to you from Amiskwaciwâskahikan, Treaty 6, Edmonton, Alberta. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us at Glass Bookshop across social media platforms or by emailing us at radio@glassbookshop.com. Magda Mulatu is our podcast producer, and our amazing Glass Bookshop Radio logo is by Michelle Campos Castillo. Since we are a bookstore, you can support us by checking out glassbookshop.com, where you can order almost any book that your heart desires. We offer free delivery in Edmonton, St. Albert, and Sherwood Park, and we ship across North America. You can also find information on the podcast there, including transcripts and show notes and more. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.